It's the secrets that make us sick. You can't get what you want and acknowledge. So let's have a conversation on this time. We're taking it out of the box. Yeah, yeah. We're taking it out of the box. We're taking it out of the box. You know it's time. So let's talk about it.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Tuesday night, and you know what that means. It's time for Outside the Box with Dr. Roy Bright. I am really excited to have you here and to have you on this. We were going to go to a new subject, but God really impressed upon my heart to expand this conversation about surviving loss. And last week we spoke with Minister Susan McQueen, and she gave us just an enormous amount of information about loss and how it affected her and her family. And I decided to ask her daughter, Sharian McQueen, to come online today and talk with us and share loss from her perspective, how it affected her, how it affected their family from her point of view. And she graciously agreed to come. I'm telling you, this is going to be some amazing conversation and information. If you have not listened to the first part, please go back and listen to it. But tonight, let's bring on Miss Sharian McQueen. Hello, Sharian. How are you?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for agreeing to um, come on and share with us. I know that the burden of loss is heavy, and the fact that you are willing to talk with us tonight is amazing. So, hey, Paul, and hey, Luetta, and all those others who are watching. So, let's just kind of kick it right into gear. Last week, your mother was on, and she shared with us the the story of how your brother died and what kind of toll that took on her and the family and the emotional kind of turmoil that brought her through, the level of depression and the things that she did. She even went so far as she shared about pointing a gun, your dad waking up with a gun in his face. I mean, she put it out there. And as I shared with you when we talked, that I have been bombarded with people who have come on, who have sent me messages saying how much that really helped them in terms of her openness, her willingness to really talk about the issue, not gloss over it, and how um, it really gave them some relief, some sense of how to process their own grief, and even how it made them view her kind of differently in retrospect, because she shared, hey, Richard and Shay and Beatrice, because she shared that she knows that she was not kind to people during that time, and how that I'm sure that came across to folks, and they got an impression about who she was based on her moment of hurt, and how, and I'm gonna say this, how unfair, sometimes it is for people to judge you when you are at your point of weakness, at your point of low, and they don't understand your grief, so they don't make room for your grief.
Hmm.
I want you to share um, kind of your story. So um, she told us that he was hit by she was on the phone with him. He was hit by a car. I'm just before I let you kind of get in, one of the things that I didn't get to ask her was, did she, I mean, was there arrests made or was it considered an accident? Like, so I don't know what the circumstances behind that are as well.
I can be honest, first of all, that is a sensitive spot for me because
Okay.
there were no arrests made. As a matter of fact, the young lady was just able to get up and drive home as if nothing happened. The other car that hit that car was towed off and no tickets, no nothing. You know, it's just another happy-go-lucky day, just another black man who's dead, you know.
Wow. Wow. Okay. That's wow. So I can only imagine how that kind of impacted the whole level of grief and the whole, wow, that's all right. So let me let you get started. Just kind of talk to us about your relationship with your brother and then the impact, and you just talk. Kind of like you did with me the other day. You just talk.
Okay, I mean, let's just start with my relationship with my brother. I am the baby of the family, so I was the baby girl, and I definitely acted the part. My brother was my everything. He did absolutely everything for me. He even covered for me. Even though, like, whenever he graduated and went off to college, we may not have talked like every week. People didn't understand that. Like, you don't talk to your brother every week? No, I don't have to. I know he's fine, whatever. Let him live his life. I'll call him in a month or two, whatever. But whenever we talked, we talked. And I was his baby sister. It was like whenever he came home, I would always run into his arms and dang near knock him over. Because that was just our love for each other. I mean, even in high school, I remember, not high school, but middle school. He was in high school, I was in middle school, and he would drive me to middle school and we would jam to whatever music we were listening to. Our favorite song was Cisco Kid was a friend of mine. And we would just go all out in the car in our own little world. And that was, I mean, we were like that since we were kids. I mean, especially growing up in the church, all we had was each other. I mean, we had friends, sure, but we knew for sure that the only two people that we could really trust
Was each other.
So that was it. And, you know, we looked a whole lot alike too. I mean, from the eyebrows to the face, the whole 9 yards, we looked like each other. So far as his actual passing, whenever he died, I remember that night. It was a Thursday night. I was at school, actually. I was at school. I think mom was at church at choir rehearsal and dad was at church doing something. And I just finished my wind ensemble. I got an A on my exam or whatever. Miss Kresmer was taking me home, and I remember getting in the car and I was like, I feel like somebody's gonna die tonight. It just feels real eerie right now. And she freaked out. She's like, don't say that, don't say that. I'm like, but it just feels really eerie. I don't know how else to explain it, but that's what it feels like. So she took me home, dropped me off. And I proceeded with my normal routine, getting something to eat, yada, yada, yada. Mom comes home, she comes in and she's talking about progress or whatever. And then the phone rings, my brother calls. And we're on the phone. And again, it just feels real eerie. Mind you, 3 weeks prior, the last time I saw him, it actually felt like it was going to be the last time I saw him, which was a whole other experience within itself. But that night, you know, the last time I spoke to him and I told him I loved him, and when I handed the phone, again, it was just like, that's the last time I'm going to hear his voice. That was the feeling that I was getting. And then my mom takes the phone and she goes upstairs, she's talking to him, and all I hear within 30 minutes is a big thud on the floor. And I'm like, what happened? Is everything okay? So I scream upstairs, I'm calling her name, she's not responding. And I'm like, oh, that's weird, but whatever. Okay, I'm just gonna let it go. So I'm downstairs watching the news like I typically would, but mom would typically be downstairs. It took her like an additional hour to come downstairs. She comes downstairs, and we were about to watch Comic View on BET. Yes, Comic View on BET, whatever.
I know about those days.
It was a great show. I don't care what people say. It's a great show. Anyway, um, we didn't watch it because it was just like we just felt so unsettled. So we tried to go to bed. We went to bed and I didn't drop off to sleep until it was late. But then 3 a.m. rolls around and his fiance at the time comes to wake me up and she's crying and she's like, I don't know what's going on. They won't tell me. I'm like, who in the heck is they and why are you in my room crying? Like whatever issue between you and Brunel, deal with that. I don't have anything to do. No, I need you to come downstairs. So leave my bedroom, reluctantly because I'm just like, you tripping. That's y'all. I have nothing to do with this. And I see this woman standing at the bottom of the stairs. And me being the person I am, anybody who really knows me, I'm like, why is this person in my house at 3 a.m. in the morning? Have you lost your mind bringing some random person in this house? And she said, well, ma'am, who are you? And I'm like, you're asking me who I am and you're standing in my house? Exactly. It's all these different thoughts are going through my head. And I'm like, well, ma'am, who are you before I tell you who I am, since you're standing, at the bottom of my steps? And she's like, well, I'm from the fire department. And I look around, I'm like, well, the house is not on fire. So again, I don't understand the purpose here. Well, I need you to tell me who I am. And then mom's sitting at the table and she's like, just tell them who you are. And I'm like, well, I'm her daughter. I'm Sharon McQueen. What are you doing here? What do you want with me? And she said, well, I need you to come downstairs. And we go back and forth about 5 minutes. And I'm like, I'm not coming downstairs. I don't know you. I'm not coming downstairs. And then she eventually tells me that my brother was dead. And I look over at my mom and she's sitting in the chair and she immediately breaks down. His fiance breaks down at the bottom of the stairs. And I remember wanting to cry, but I was in such a state of shock that I couldn't cry then. And then I start kind of process and start trying to cry. And then the woman's trying to come close to me and try to talk to me. And again, I'm like, no, I don't know you like that. Get away from me. I'm trying to process what you just told me. And then with all the screaming and hollering, my dad comes out from his bedroom and he's like, what's going on? Da-da-da. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you other than, I don't know. And he comes down and around because the woman was like, don't say anything. So he comes down, he comes midway the stairs and he's asking who this woman is. I'm like, Dad, Brunel's dead. What are you talking? He's dead. And Dad just drops next to me and he starts to I had never seen my father cry like that before. Twice have I seen him cry like that. At Brunel's funeral and that day. And he just started rocking back and forth, hitting himself in the head, rocking back and forth, hitting himself in the head, rocking back and forth, rocking back and forth.
Wow.
And then my grandmother comes out and she asked, and not thinking, I told her while she's standing at the top of the stairs. She passed out the top of the stairs. And after I told her, and the paramedics go deal with her. Next thing I remember, the Kearneys had showed up. I think I'm sitting in between my mom's legs. I'm sitting between somebody's legs. I don't know who. And I'm just rocking back and forth, crying and crying and crying. Then my godmother, Mom Jeanette, shows up and she's like, I know you. You don't want to be around this. I'm like, no, take me somewhere, please. So she takes me to school Friday morning and I'm going around to each teacher telling them that my brother is dead and I need my homework. Can you imagine? My brother's dead. I need my homework because I'm not coming into school. And then she takes me to get a kolache and she's like, let's just chill. Let's talk. Let's do something. And honestly, after that, I don't remember anything else from that day. I remember my counselor from the school came by and checked on me and we sat on the stoop and talked. Other than that, I don't remember anything else from the day. Oh, wait, one thing I do remember. I remember watching the news and them talking about it. And it was just a random man who was killed. Didn't say why, didn't say how. It was just some random man. And I remember thinking, this great of a person, that's all you have to say about him? Even though, yes, I know logically speaking now, they don't know anything about him. So yeah, they're not going to say anything about him. He means nothing to them. But to me, it was just like, that's how my brother's life ends. And
Do you think that kind of at that moment, while you knew it intellectually, clearly emotionally, you had not begun the process,
oh
right?
no way. It was still unreal. You know what I mean? It was still
It
unreal.
was
And
a fact, but it was an unreal at the same time. Like you knew it to be a fact, but it was unreal at the same time.
yes, it most definitely. I mean, it was so unreal that I tried calling my brother about his death the next day. Like I woke up the next morning like I need to talk to my brother, and I literally picked up the phone to call him, and I'm like, you can't call the person who's dead, Sharian. He's dead, he's gone, he's not here. And to begin that process, and then a lot of people don't understand that week after, like so many people were coming by, dropping off food. I couldn't tell you who came. I couldn't tell you who said whatever or gave whatever. I mean no harm to anybody. Thank you to each and every one of you. I don't know what happened. I don't remember what I did in class. I don't remember what I wore. Don't remember what I ate. Don't remember what anything. All up until the Friday before my brother's funeral, I remember the Kearneys took us to Baby A's. And even then, I just remember being at Baby A's. Anything before that or after that, I don't remember. Next thing I probably remember is us being in the house and praying to prepare to go to the funeral, which I was so angry at the funeral. Angry for several reasons. Number one, I'm a very private person. So I was already upset at the fact that I have to put on clothes to put on a pop and circumstance for everybody else. Because I do remember having the conversation with my mom. My mom was like, we have to be strong for the church and we have to put on a brave face for the church. And I'm like, for the church? The church? I just lost my brother and I have to put on a brave face for them. No offense to them, but whatever. I don't care. I lost my brother, the man that I grew up with, and now I got to put a brave face on for you. Okay. And I remember even walking down the aisle.
Sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
angry for sure. Even as I'm walking down the aisle, like people are like doing this and this, and all I can remember thinking like I'm smiling at them and saying thank you, but in my mind I'm like, for the lack of a term, screw you. How dare, like I don't even want you here. Matter of fact, when was the last time you called him? When was the last time you saw him? I don't even remember who you are, and you're doing this to me. Really? No. So that whole experience was just like the funeral, and that initial week was just pure anger, especially at the person who killed him, you know? And I remember my parents telling me that the woman wanted to speak to us. And I told them, I said, I don't care if she lives, dies, whatever. I don't want to see her. I don't want to speak to her. I don't need to know she exists. Because as far as I'm concerned, she just took the best person in my life. So she can kick rocks. I don't care. My parents were like, you shouldn't be that. I know what God says, but this is how I feel, and I have the right to feel the way I feel. She can go away. I don't want to talk to her. And I think a lot of people try to suppress those feelings. You have to go through the angry stage before you can go through anything else. You have to stage. Even I remember being angry with God, during that period of time. That was horrific. So I'm sitting up here mad with God, not wanting to be at church because I'm having to put on a brave face every day. Because even after the funeral, them recording it and all this other stuff, like I was over and done with it. But life still had to go on. So the next Sunday, everything was back to normal for everybody else. So we're going to choir practice. We're going to the dance ministry. We are doing, usher, and we're doing drill team. We're doing whatever, right? We're doing all of these things. And I'm supposed to sit here and look pretty and smile and be the fun-loving Sharian that everybody loves. And on the inside, I'm
You
dead.
weren't feeling that at all.
I couldn't tell. That was so that's the other thing. I don't think a lot of people realize that all three of us were graduating at the same time. So my dad was graduating with his doctorate. My mom was graduating with her master's, and I was graduating from high school on my way to college. And I remember looking at all of us one day and just thinking, we are zombies walking around here, putting on a facade for literally everyone, whether it was at school, at work, whatever. It was just a pure facade for everybody else. So 3 months after my brother passed, I'm on my way to college. Mind you, barely making it through high school at that point, because I remember about to flunk English. I don't know if her mom remembers this, but I almost flunked English just because I forgot to turn in a paper. And he was like, look, I'm sorry to tell you, but I need this paper or else you're gonna flunk and you're not gonna be able to go to college. So I remember staying up all night turning in a paper so I don't flunk out of high school.
Wow.
And then it wasn't even like I had any time to process anything. I had 4 months, 4 months with my parents, which, I love my parents, I respect my parents, but because they were grieving, they couldn't be there for me. You know what I mean? Though in those 4 months, I needed time to at least to kind of process my brother's death, but I couldn't say my brother's name. Pictures of my brother, they were still up, but specific ones that were really special to us were turned around, for nobody to look at. His room, I remember me and my mom getting into a fight because she wanted to take everything out of his room. And I was like, no, don't. I mean, how? He's already dead. He's already dead. Please don't take his stuff. That's all that I have of him right now. Besides my memories, I need you not to take it, please. And for her, it was just her trying to clear it out so it could be out of sight, out of mind, which I understand because that's how she
processing her grief.
Exactly. Yeah. It was her way, but it was just like, I can't take that. And not having them at that moment in life was difficult. So difficult even now. Anybody who knew me prior to my brother's death, I didn't date anybody. I didn't go out with nobody. That was not my thing. I have my brother for what? If I want something, I'm gonna go ask him or ask dad. What do I need you for? When my brother passed away, a young man who is a great person, I'm not speaking down on him, will never speak down on him, wonderful person. He asked me out 3 weeks prior to my brother's death. I told him no. He asked me, I got out again on the day of my brother's funeral, because we had been talking for like a week, and we started dating. A month later, we were engaged. Had my brother not died, none of that ever would have happened. Not to say that he's a horrible person again, but he just is not the person for me. And my parents were in such a state of shock that, they kind of didn't process any of that until other people were looking at them like, your daughter is about to get married before she goes to college. Hello, no, this is not about to happen. No, wake up. You got to do something. So they made sure that I was in college, gone, June. I don't remember registering for anything. I don't remember any of that. But they made sure everything was done. All my stuff was packed up and I was gone. Which on the one hand was good in the sense of I didn't make a choice that I would have regretted for the rest of my life. But on the other hand, I spent the next, really, to tell you the truth, I'm just now really starting to feel like my old self again. I mean, imagine 13 years and I'm just now getting to a point where I feel like the person who existed before my brother. I've had moments where I felt better, but never like this. But it's taken 13 years of healing and processing a lot. And really, while I was off at college, I didn't process anything.
That was
I,
going to be my next kind of question is like, what was that process like? You're at school. Um, did you finally deal with it? Did you finally kind of get it out? Uh, did you fail out? Did you flunk out? Did you misbehave? Like, what was the process dealing with that when you were at school?
while I was off at college, to be quite honest, the first year I was engaged and I did great my first year. I was able to make it through my first year. I had 4.0. Whole church celebrated, yada yada. It was great. Um, my sophomore year, I had broken up. The fall, I had broken up with my fiance at that point. Um, I had known this other guy um, since my freshman year, and we were friends then. And we had kind of been talking, and then we started dating the beginning of my sophomore year. And I remember the first year of our relationship, everything was fine up until I failed physics, which, by the way, again, I was not, I was all A and B student my entire life. F, I didn't understand what that meant. So not only was I dealing with the fact of being a failure at that point, but I still hadn't processed anything about my brother's death. You know, people would ask me about him. I remember girls, I had a picture of my brother. As a matter of fact, it's this picture right here. My favorite picture of him. I had that picture on my desk at in college, and girls would come in. Ooh, who is that girl? Is that your boyfriend? No, that's my brother. Ooh, when is he coming here? He's not. When can we go see him? I mean, you can, but I doubt that you want to.
Wow.
and, and eventually, like, they would ask, why can't we see him? I'm like, well, because he's in Cook Walden. Where's Cook Walden? It's a graveyard. Why is he in the grave? He's dead. And, you know, because I never, and that was my way of trying to tell people without being offensive that he was deceased. And when I would tell people, like, their face would just, I'm so sorry. And then it was this whole other ordeal.
And you didn't want that. That was not what you wanted.
Ever. I hated it. Matter of fact, I remember even being in college, like, people from the church, they were just trying to check on me and be loving and caring in a way, by calling me on the anniversary of his death. And I'm like, I'm trying to prepare for school and take care of things. And now you're calling me about my brother's death. Thank you for reminding me. I had forgotten about it, but now I remember. Great. Thanks. Appreciate it. No, not really. But saying all that to say, going back to the initial point, when I hit that first failure, it was like things started coming loose. And then the relationship that I had at the time, things hit a rocky point. So things got even worse. And I remember there was one night, he just left to go be with his boys. You know, there was not that big of a deal, but I wanted him to stay. And he didn't. And I remember losing it in my room. And I say losing it, I had thrown a jar that my Aunt Sharon had given me across the bathroom. I had thrown a couple of other things, broken a couple of glasses. And I remember sitting on my
all-out tantrum.
Yeah, I did. I had an all-out tantrum in my bathroom, in my room, by myself, crying on the floor. And I remember my friends at the time not understanding what was really going on. Just saying that I was spoiled. And I didn't know how to deal with any problems or issues. And which honestly I didn't, not saying I did, but I needed somebody just to sit there and be like, help me process that. But again, nobody was there for that. And as a matter of fact, I remember all throughout college trying to have moments of trying to process it, but I needed to graduate. So I didn't have time to stop and process. Even when I was trying to talk to my parents about it, they still hadn't gotten to a point to where they could talk about my brother yet. Now, mind you, we're talking about 2 years into his death. Nobody's talking about it. So that's my sophomore year. My junior year, still not processing. Same thing for my senior years, because I took internships. So that pushed my dates around. I took 3 internships. But my performance level, had my brother been living, the GPA that I graduated with, I never would have graduated with. But because he was not there and I had not dealt with failure before, and I could not really talk to my parents about experiencing failure and experiencing my brother's death, I flatlined. I flatlined. And my self-esteem dropped because my brother was my everything. You know, he was the one who told me I was beautiful. He was the one who got me gifts. He was the one who would call me on Valentine's Day and my birthday and do all those special little things to make me feel great and special. So I went through that process of trying to figure out, which also meant making poor choices with men. That was an experience within itself, because again, the man that I would have talked about that with and felt comfortable talking about that with was dead and gone. And I no longer had a man to talk to. I mean, yes, my father is very present in my life, but what girl with any sense would talk to her father about dating some man while he's paying for her college? Like, no, that's not the conversation you have.
Do you think so? One of the comments that came in, and I want to ask you, do you think you were cling and I think the word is clinging, that they were getting to clinging to him, meaning this guy, and maybe even, you know, the other guys, because your brother was gone and you needed a shoulder to lean on, you needed somebody present for
Yes,
you?
that was exactly it. I was always consistently and constantly trying to fill that void of him not being there. I needed somebody else there to kind of build me up and to encourage me when I was down. Not realizing that really the only person I really needed was Jesus. And yes, I grew up in the church, but again, it's one thing to hear it, and it's another thing to actually live it and experience it. And having to even go through that process of learning how to really lean and depend and trust in God. For the first like three years of my college experience, I did not go to church because I refused, because that's where a lot of my church hurt came from, especially after my brother died. I mean, the things that people said about me after my brother died was beyond hurtful, especially from the people that I really thought loved me, you know, people that I grew up with, but they're out here calling me outside my name, saying things about me that wasn't true. Even if I had people in Prairie View that watched me, that would kind of report back to other people saying, "Oh, we saw Sharon at a party," which all my friends could tell. I know I maybe went to 3 clubs my entire life. I did go to house parties, did do that. But what difference would it make? I was in college. I should have had that experience without having church members on top of me trying to go through my emotions about my brother bashing me because I'm living the college experience.
And so when you said kind of church hurt, what do you mean?
Being a pastor's daughter, forgive me if I've offended anyone, is awful. And I'm saying is awful, not was. Is awful. Because people feel like they can say whatever they want to about you. They feel like they are privy to your private life. They feel like you are responsible for the church. And they feel like they can put all these expectations on you. With that being said, that comes with them talking about the way that you dress, them talking about your hair, them talking about, who you're dating, who you're not dating, how you're doing in school and what you're not doing in school. Oh, my favorite is always when they love to try to go tell my parents on me when that I've said something to them that they didn't like or they disagreed with. So now they're gonna go tell mommy and daddy. Okay, go tell them. And I will gladly, politely, and respectfully tell them I'm not doing that because they don't have a right to my personal and private life, nor do they get to judge me on something they have no idea what's going on in my life.
And that was real for you? That really happened to you? Like that kind of stuff, really?
Yeah, it does, and it did. And it's kind of back then, because I didn't have any self-esteem. Like, I had lost all self-esteem. Let's be frank, it was gone. When my brother died, my self-esteem at that time died as well.
Wow.
So anything that anybody ever said to me, it hurt just that much more. And as time progressed, the person who I was before my brother died and the person I am now didn't exist. It couldn't exist because I was just so broken. I mean, I think about the day that I graduated from college. I remember my Uncle Joel looking at me like, you don't have any cords around your what is it called? The gown.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah. No, I don't. I just graduated. I remember like thinking, yeah, I graduated. Whoop-de freaking do, my brother's not here. I'm still broken. I feel like nothing. And that's what I honestly felt my graduation day. I felt like nothing. 7 years later, and I still felt completely and utterly empty. Like, processing his death during college was not a thing. Not a thing. It wasn't until after I moved back home that I really started processing my brother's death. And that was because I had no choice then, because I'm in the house with the people that we shared those experiences with. And I think that was kind of for all of us. I mean, that was the first time that we were all in the house together after my brother's death. And I think that's when that was the first Christmas that I was home. Well, actually, a couple of Christmases prior to that, I take that back. I remember looking at my mom and saying, hey, I'm still here. I know my brother's gone.
Did you feel like that maybe she or they forgot you because?
Oh, they did. It wasn't a question. And I don't hold that against them, but they lost their son, their only son. And I was non-existent.
Was there anger towards them because of that?
Initially, yeah, of course. For a long time, I hated them for that. I did. But I had to realize I had to give them grace and space and understand that they had to process their feelings the way that they process them. And God has a purpose for everything. So I needed, honestly, it's like I would not be the woman I am today had I not had that complete and total separation from everything and everyone in that manner. So with that being said, it's just I hated them for that at that time. Yes, I don't anymore because I understand where they were, but it definitely hurt me to come home. And even my mom, poor thing, she would get our favorite things mixed up. I hate chicken rice. Hate it with a passion. I hate boiled chicken. Don't like it. But I would come home and she would have made chicken and rice. I made your favorite, and I'm like, this is not my favorite. And I've told you several times, this is not my favorite. Stop making it. And even to the point of like, whenever I was home, you know, my father is always out doing multiple things, right? But there was things that still need to be done at home. But when my brother passed away, those things that he used to come back home and do, guess who was now responsible for it?
Wow.
Me. And I still deal with a lot of that because I'm the only child. So when they get old, who takes care of them? I do. So with that, there was another level of independence that I've learned. And I was already kind of like a stronger personality. It became even stronger after my brother's death. And in the dating world, that is very difficult to kind of balance, not suppress, but balance. Because no, you're not about to just say anything to me. No, you're not about to just do anything. I need to know and understand that you're going to have a conversation with me. And if you can't have that, there's no point in you talking to me. And that attitude is the attitude that I would give to them. And I would wonder, why are they having an issue? I figured men would appreciate that. Not a thing. Not a thing. So learning how to still be strong, but still be feminine, it was a thing. Still is a thing a little bit.
Did you go to professional counseling at all?
Not initially, not until I got back home. When I came back home, I've been home for maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And I gotten to the point to where I wanted to kill myself. I remember being at the church, and really not even at the church. I was getting something done in my car, and the young lady who picked me up to take my car in, I remember her looking at me crazy because I was rocking back and forth. I was crying. I was a hot mess. And I remember going to the church, and I remember sitting there and just staring out the window thinking, I could throw a chair through this window and jump out of this window and end it right now.
Wow. Wow.
And a lot of people don't understand, like, to feel that empty with people around you is unexplainable.
Wow.
And the only thing that prevented me from doing that was just the thought of like the fear of like, well, I know that God has control of that. So if I kill myself, does that mean I go to heaven or hell? And I'm like, I want to see my brother again. So we have to try to do something different. So I called my dad and I was like, I'm ready to kill myself. I called him and those were my words to him. He dropped the phone, came to the church, and was like, we're getting you help today. And that was the first time that I received counseling about my brother's death. And that was at least a decade after. Well over a decade after.
Wow. Sherry, that's heavy. I don't know how to, I don't even know how to respond. I'll just let you keep talking. I don't know what to say.
I mean, and it just comes from the pressure of having to always put on a facade. As the pastoral family, there was no such thing as breaking down. No such thing. And it was like, every turn that I tried to break down, if it wasn't my mother, it was a church member, it was somebody when I was still in high school, it was a teacher. When I was in college, it was a professor, a friend. It was somebody always telling me, you can't break down because nobody else can handle your issue. Which again, that is true. They can't. No one person can handle all of that. No one person can. But I still should have gone to counseling long before the time that I did. I still should have done other things, like even just simply as writing. Just writing down everything that I felt in those moments and trying to really process all of those feelings to really get through that. And that's really where the change happened. When I finally sat down in a counselor's chair, because I really thought I was going crazy. I was ready to die. I just didn't want to be here anymore. And that's all I could say to her. And she was like, have you even talked about how you really feel about your brother's death? All the feelings that you've ever had about him. Have you really talked about your feelings? And my response was no. And she said, well, what we're going to do, we're just going to talk through all your feelings.
Were you scared to do that? Were you prepared to do that?
Was I prepared? No. But did I understand that it was necessary in order to live? Yes. Because it was like, when she told me, because when you're in that moment of like wanting to die, you think that nobody else cares about you. Nobody wants you around, especially I've talked to her about this already, but my mom would always say, why are you still here and he's not?
Wow. What did that mean to you when she said that?
Well, for me, it was like, so what you're saying is you wish I was dead and he was alive. Okay.
Even that, I mean, that had to crucify you.
It always did.
Because of how you, obviously, how you interpreted that.
It always did. It always, every time she would say it, or even things like, Burnell never did it that way. And I'm like, well, go wake him up then. Go get him. Go get him, because I'm who you're stuck with. Whether you like it or not, I'm here. So either you're going to accept it the way that I do it, or you're not.
And did you feel like she was forced to have you?
I don't know if I would say forced. I don't know how I would describe that. It was one of those things where, I guess for all of us, really, it's just one of those things. Burnell was just a magnificent person. And I don't know how in the heck he managed to do it. I really don't. But he managed to serve each and every one of us differently and to meet our needs where we were. And when he died, none of us knew how to deal with each other.
Wow.
None of us knew how to meet each other's need, nor did we know how to communicate it. So there was a period of time when I moved back home, like those first 3 years, Lord Jesus, they were rough for more than one reason. Because communication was not a thing in our house. It just wasn't. It was not a thing. So to figure out how to communicate with one another in love and not in anger and not in hate and not blaming ourselves or each other for his death. We have said, and we have to repeat to ourselves, his death is not our fault. His death was ordained by God. His death had purpose, and we could not have changed it nor controlled it. Because guess what? He was a grown man who made his own decisions. So you can't do anything about that. But what we can do is deal with each other and learn how to communicate.
And that was part of what we're going to talk about your feelings. We're going to get it all out. That was kind of what this counseling was meant to do.
And it did, just to hear myself say those things and to have a place to say, I hate my parents without somebody going, oh my God, you should never hate your parents.
Wow.
And I think that that's a problem with Black families and people in general, but Black families especially. We were taught to never truthfully express our feelings, even if they're extremely negative. My feelings about my parents at that time were extremely negative, even though they were doing the best they could with what they had.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But guess what? My feelings were still valid.
Absolutely.
And I had the right to say, I hate them right now. Because until I could say, I hate you, I couldn't get back to the point to say, I love you right where you are. Because when I say I hate you, I have to come to a point of understanding of where you are in order to move to the next step. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely, I do.
And when I was able to really process that in my entire being and my real self, I could finally let all of that go and say, okay, I have an A space that I can start working with some of the other stuff. And that's something else that people don't talk about. Having that space to deal with it, because my brother's death covered up some other things, right? So there were issues and problems that I had prior to my brother dying. So for example, me not wanting to date men and me leaning on him for all of my confidence, that was a problem. But I didn't know that that was an issue until he died. So then I had to learn how to cope and deal with the issue that was already present prior to his death. So a lot of people look at the death and say, well, I don't want to deal with the emotion of the death. No, what you really don't want to deal with is all the other stuff that that person was already kind of covering up. And now you have to go and deal with all that junk because there's no one there to kind of help you hide all of that.
Yeah. It's not in the secret anymore. It's out
It's
in the open.
It's out in the open. So for me, I had to really learn how to gain or to engage that confidence that was already instilled in me, which took some time. And to figure out how to do it my way, because a lot of people wanted me to do it their way, which was another argument that me and my mother had all the time. Because even though people call me Mini Susan sometimes, I am not Mini Susan. I am Sharon Janae McQueen. That is who I am. And I'm not going to be Susan. I will never be her. And I love her to death, don't want to be. Because there will never be another Susan McQueen. As long as I live, there will never be another one. But I can't do what she does. And I tried doing what she did and almost died trying to do it. So learning how to process all of these things the way that I would do it and being comfortable with that and still accepting all those things from all the other people, because people still had opinions about how I would process my grief. You know what I mean? So like people felt like I should be in this ministry. I can't handle being in that ministry right now because I'm still dealing with my brother's death. And let me say this as well. Grief, you don't really get rid of it. You learn how to cope with it. It's always kind of there because you're always discovering something new about that death. I feel like now that death is a way of growing, right? It's a gateway to new growth, new life, new beginnings. And once we can look at it that way, once we can look at the death of a person, whether it was expected or unexpected, um, looking at it as growth and new beginnings, we can really begin to work through all those emotions with a different mindset. It's no longer a burden. It's a desire to get to work through it because I want to get to the next phase. I want to grow. I want to be a new person.
And so, what do you think the end result of the counseling that you participated in? How do you think? What was the greatest outcome? Where are you now? And I think this month is the same month. It's 14 years this month, right? February.
Yes.
So where are you now?
Where am I now? Gosh, where am I now?
I know that's kind of a broad question.
I mean, there are parts of me, like there are things that I talked about that that I had before my brother that I've kind of returned, and I'm kind of glad that they returned. I was always a perfectionist, but I've changed it now from being a perfectionist to just being really organized and allowing myself grace when things fall out of place. So we've learned how to balance that. I am definitely, for my brother's death, I am definitely more loving than I was before he died. He was the nice one. I was the mean one. I still didn't, still not that good with people. In the sense of I'm not always warm depending on who I'm meeting.
Oh, you've always been warm to me. Always.
But it's you.
I am warmable, I guess.
Exactly. Well, a lot that's strange that you say that though. A lot of people will always tell me, but you're always warm. And I'm like, I'm glad that you feel that way because it's something that I've been working on and I consistently work on. Because no matter how I feel, I still need to be personable and warm to others and loving towards others. And that was my brother's thing. That was like his mantra, his motto. He was like, even if that person really disrespected you and really did you dirty, God mandates that we love them in spite of. We have to love them for who they are. And I've really taken that on. Even on my job, I'm a teacher. And I have some students, that can work a last nerve. But I love them for exactly who they are. And I appreciate them for who they are. So I can meet them where they are. So I can help them not only grow in the subject, but even grow as a person. And it's a beautiful thing.
I know we're getting close to the time where we have to end. I just kind of have, I guess, one more question to wrap it up. And I want to tell you again just how grateful I am that you came on and to share your experience and your growth, and also kind of your depression, because I think people can identify with where they've been along that whole spectrum themselves. So would you call yourself good now?
Good? No, absolutely not. I'm better, much better. But probably not less than 2-3 months ago, when I tell you I cried as if he just died the day before. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I still miss him. There's not a day that goes by that I wake up and don't miss him. Smells that trigger him. Somebody said something. A student laughed similarly to him one day, and I about cried. I about died in the middle of class. And they're like, Miss McQueen, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. I just give me a moment to get myself together. They had no idea what was going on, and they didn't need to. But I'm better. I'm not gonna say I'm good, but I'm better because I can look at his picture and laugh. I can think about him and laugh and share the goodness and the lessons that I've learned about his death. The lessons, the growth points in my life.
Well, Sharon, thank you again for being vulnerable and sharing with us. This has been extremely helpful. I know it's been helpful to me, and I know it's been helpful to a lot of folks. And we will obviously be continuing to pray for you and your family. And I know y'all look good. I mean, as a family, y'all are crazy just being around y'all. And I told your mama that beef tips, man, that was just so good, and the cornbread. And, oh my God, so
We
good.
still owe me some rolls anyway, by the way. Just so
You know what? It's funny you say that, because I have been attempting to make rolls like last week and this week, and I don't know if the yeast I have is not rising right. But I'm frustrated because I was thinking about that when we got on the phone. I said, I need to make these rolls. I need to practice, get them back, because I haven't made them in so long, because I know I owe Sharon rolls. And so I'm going to get them right, and I'm going to make your rolls here real soon.
Thank you.
Look at Tony talking about stop trying to get another invite. Yes, I am. I want some more of that good food from the McQueen house. Let me just put it simply just like, so soon as, in the words of Paul March, soon as Rona is over, I'm coming for some more good food. But everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. And we will be back next week. And while I have stuff planned, God does something different. So maybe we'll have something new, and maybe we won't. We'll just see. But I'll see you everybody next week. God bless you. Thank you again, Sherry, and everybody take care.
My
Bye-bye.
pleasure. Bye, guys.